We talk about loyalty all the time, loyalty to brands, to customers, to communities. But what if I told you that the truest form of loyalty might not come from repeat purchases or NPS scores, but from building a classroom halfway across the world? Stay with me because today we are pouring a special cup of purpose. Welcome to the Loyalty Talks podcast, the space where strategy meets soul and customer marketing finally feels human. I'm Aparna, and after nearly 2 decades of building advocacy and loyalty programs, I know one truth. Customer voices are the strongest currency a brand will ever own. This podcast is for marketers who turn users into superfans and quiet work into industry shifting impact. Whether you're launching your first program or leading a global engine, join me and my expert guests for honest conversations, real blueprints, and zero gatekeeping. Pull up a seat. This is the Loyalty Talks podcast. This Thanksgiving month, we are brewing something deeper. We are talking about a different kind of loyalty, one that lights a spark, hope, and human connection. And joining me is someone who embodies that bridge between advocacy and altruism. Jeni Asaba, Senior Manager of Community and Advocacy at Jamf, and the heart behind Building for Bridget, a nonprofit that built a school in Uganda, equipping children with a brighter future. Together, we'll explore how customer advocacy programs can be more than engagement engines and how they can become catalysts for change, compassion, and connection. Hey, Jenny, thanks so much for doing this today.
Thank you for having me. What a fabulous intro and a fun topic. I'm excited to get into it.
Wonderful. So, Jennifer got us together in this mentor group. I never ever imagined that there would come a day that I would be meeting those people again with a very different purpose. I was telling Dave, I think 2, 3 years.
It
Yeah.
time has a different type of continuum these days, doesn't it? It just kind of rolls by and I'm never really sure. I want to say it was about 2 years ago that we were a
Yeah.
part of that
Yeah.
program. Yeah.
So, let's start with the story that started it all. Building for Bridget. What inspired you to create it, and how has the mission evolved since you began?
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to start off by saying I'm going to address something that people ask me about all the time. And they're just like, Jenny, how do you do it all? Which I always just kind of giggle, and I'm like, well, I've got 3 boys. And once you have kids, they kind of force you to be just like very efficient and use your time really well.
Uh-huh.
But you also fail as a human a lot. And there's a lot of things that I'll get to that. And I love one of your questions that we'll talk about failure and bad advice and things like that. Building for Bridget started after a dream came to fruition after many, many years of development. So I married my husband back in 2006. Not that anybody cares when I got married, but I'm telling you that because he is from rural Uganda. So on the west side of Uganda, which is obviously a very small country in Eastern Africa. And we went to Uganda for the first time in 2008. So that was my first time heading over, checking it out, seeing what it was like. Boy, was culture shock a thing. There's lots of stories around that. But the thing that really struck me was just this desire to help in some way.
Hmm.
I had never experienced that level of poverty before. I'd never been immersed in it. We stayed deep in the village. I was introduced to a pit latrine for the first time in my life. All the shock, right? And just seeing the kids who had nothing, seeing, maybe a 12-year-old who had a baby on their back, standing in the middle
Oh,
of the street, covered in dirt, begging for food. That kind of image sticks with you over the
yeah.
course of your
Yeah.
life. And I remember saying on that trip after a lot of tears and a lot of reflection, like, what can we do? That was the number one thing. What can we do? And at the time we were, newlywed still. We were super poor. We had no idea. And we came up with the thing that you can do because you always have different amounts of time, talent, and treasure that you can give the
Yeah.
world back.
Yeah.
And that's what I was always raised with. How do you give back what you can at any given point in time? So we did things like on future trips, we brought shoes. We brought there's a fabulous nonprofit that makes a shoe that grows and it
Oh,
grows
lovely.
with a child for up to 5 years is this sandal. It's amazing.
That's
They're
so
still out there.
interesting.
Yeah, the shoe that grows, look it up. So we raised money at Jamf actually, at the company I was at the time and where I still am, and brought 100 pair of shoes, and we went and we put them on the feet of 100
Oh,
kids in
wow.
this little school, which, I mean, that was one thing. We had brought school supplies over. We had brought stuffed animals. We had done these things that never felt big enough, right? Because
Yeah.
there's just so much need everywhere and you're like, how can you make a dent? It never felt big enough. So I was actually on a trip in 2019 where I at that time only had 2 kids, but we brought our 2 kids
Uh-huh.
and on the airplane ride home, I remember we looked at each other and we had this dream of building a school. It really started, it was my husband's dream. Again, no idea how we'd make it happen. We just looked at each other and we're like, now's the time. Now's the time. We need to get back. We need to form a nonprofit and we need to build a school. And we had no idea how. We didn't know how to build a nonprofit. We didn't know where to start. We had no idea how we were going to raise money to make it happen. But we just knew because if we didn't, nobody else would. Those
Correct.
kids had no other opportunity, we were it. So we're like, "All right, it can't fail because those kids need us." And that's kinda that was a long answer to your question, but that's how it all
No,
started.
it's beautiful. I got a little teary, but I was like, okay, I can't start crying or something right at the beginning. You will think I'm crazy, but I get very emotional. I do. And yeah, I can't imagine. But yes, that entire idea of realizing that the simplest of ideas could ripple into something so
Yeah,
transformative. And I think it's that kind of story that reminds I'm going to connect everything to community and advocacy. So it does remind
mhm,
you that it's just not a word on a slide deck.
right.
Community isn't just that we put down for presentations, it's people, it's purpose, and it's the
Yeah,
possibility of bringing everyone together.
yes.
So
Yes,
I
for
think
a
it's.
common mission, yes, and I'll go back to kind of where I started with the why the building for Bridget matters
Uh-huh.
because Bridget is one of my husband's cousins who I met during that
I
very
saw her
first trip.
picture.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I met her on that first trip when she was just 2 years old, and she just followed me around everywhere. And it was a little unusual because culturally, if somebody with white skin comes into the village, the
They
little
run
kids they're usually scared. They usually
scared. Yes.
think that
I've
you're
seen couple
legitimately
of
a
videos.
ghost. Yes, yeah, they're scared, and she was not. She just wanted to hold my hand. She wanted to, like, just be around me all the time, and Bridget got in trouble a lot. As I saw her over the years, she got in trouble a lot too because she had this special fire in her, like, she had the glint in her eye, and I said, when we needed to come up with a name, I said, "I wanna build for Bridget. I wanna
Oh,
build for
beautiful.
kids like her so that they have a chance that that fire never goes out, it just gets bigger and bigger." So, that's where that name came from.
I love it. And I'm going to remember it. The way that for is something, yes, but beautiful. Okay, now tell me something. At Jamf, you lead
Yeah.
incredible community and advocacy initiatives. I still remember when we were in that mentor program, we used to talk a lot about things we are doing, sharing, brainstorming. Now, tell me
Yeah.
something. How did you start connecting the dots between
Mhm.
your customer programs and your passion for giving back? Was there a moment where you realized that it's not just like engagement, it's about empowerment? How did it go?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a really good question, and I've been thinking about, like, what was that seed or what was that moment that happened, and I honestly can't remember the root cause, but I can imagine
Uh-huh.
it's one of 2 things, because there are 2 things that were very real reasons for making a connection, not just with Building for Bridget, but bringing volunteer opportunities into the community, bringing support for nonprofits into the community. One
Mm.
of them is that Whenever you have a customer base, you will always have a portion of those customers who can't accept any sort of gift for doing something for you.
Yes,
You always have that, whether it be education
absolutely.
customers, government customers, whatever. You're always gonna have that. So you're always thinking about, "How can I say thank you to those customers for doing XYZ for me and my community program?"
Correct.
So an easy answer for that is saying you can make a donation on your behalf of you doing something amazing. We will make a donation to a charity that you can choose. So that's kind of an easier answer that creates a lovely result for everybody involved. And
Correct. Yeah.
then another part of it is always just thinking about where people's passions lie of if a lot of people don't wanna do a thing, you know this, true advocacy is not customers doing a thing because they want a sweatshirt. That's not what true
Yeah.
advocates
Yeah.
are. They do it because they love your brand, they
Love
wanna
it.
be an extension of your brand, they want you to succeed. Those people don't care about the next hoodie, but you still wanna recognize them in some way because 'cause you're grateful for their time, so it's another thing that you can say, "You know what, I appreciate you. Is there a charity you care about that I can donate to as a thank you?" And, oh my goodness, people latch because they wanna help, and that
Yes,
and you're gonna
you're
find
right.
I just keep talking because I get excited, but people what it comes down to is what you were alluding to earlier, humanity, people wanna help each other innately. This is
Correct.
part of our DNA. We care about other people. Most people care about other people and they wanna help. They just don't know how, and it's one avenue where you can connect the dots for them and give
Hmm.
them the opportunity.
No, I think it's pretty powerful the way you've um, said it out there, because a lot of times I also see that I need to give charity options or add a different flavor, because not everyone's chasing those $10, $20 gift
Mhm.
cards or something. Not everyone's there for, just taking gifts. I'm sure we have a variety of people, but then at the same time, we as a team also, we tend to keep our programs where we are chasing engagement metrics, right? But we
Mhm.
often forget that there are emotional metrics also that make you succeed.
100%. I
So,
mean, studies have shown time and time again that when people feel connected at a deeper level, when there's some sort of emotion,
oh
whether
yeah.
happiness, joy, whatever, that's a glue.
I truly believe that, when your advocates get to make that difference, be it for the product, through feedback, through these initiatives that you were incorporating in the community, that's a level of loyalty that can't really be
Mhm.
tracked, like not on a dashboard at least, but it's something that's felt. And I think it's circulated in our community wide. Probably a survey or a review link or something would
100%.
go. Yeah.
You know.
But tell me something now. You and I share the same kind of emotion. Some of us do, but many teams focus on points and badges and swag.
Yep.
But when they have to think about the rewards and create the real world impact,
Mhm.
like supporting these causes with advocates, how do they make that shift? How do you go ahead and convince your leadership and even your customer base? How do you go ahead and put it out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard question to answer just because there's a lot of different ways you can do it based on your organization, their own personal philosophy on
Mhm.
on giving, well, on gifting too, but on giving, on corporate responsibility, on providing these options for customers, and then what your customer base is looking for too. There's just so many variables, and what we talked about previously was would your company care more that, "Hey, if I do this, it's actually a tax benefit because you
Yeah.
as the company write it off." Some people care about that, right? Like that in organization, that is a very real benefit that if they get a tax write-off for doing a donation, and people generally are like, "Great, everybody wins,"
Hmm.
right? That's a thing where everybody wins. So it comes down to the org, it comes down to your management and what they look at, and a lot of it, and this is what I always lead with community or advocacy, is ask your customers what they would like. we've gone out and we've said like, "Hey, are there any particular charities that you would all like to go to in the past?" And we've had them vote. We put out some that we know have to be vetted again, depending on your
Hmm.
corporation. They have to vet certain ones. It can't be political, it can't be religious, what have you. And then they'd say like, "Yep, we want it to be homelessness, or we want it to
Yeah.
be something dedicated to children." And that may align with your business. So for some people, it can very closely align with what their organization is already doing. If their org isn't doing anything, it could be a little bit more open. But when you get that buy-in from customers from the start that they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can donate to a charity or an organization or cause that really
Correct.
needs
Yeah.
it," and they help weigh in on what that is, the buy-in is there, and then that makes everything easier too. And I remember when our customers hit the equivalent of $20,000 worth of gifts that
Uh-huh.
they had given to organizations instead. That was no longer just a success of the community team. That was the entire
Wow.
organization is like, "Our customers did that is amazing."
That is amazing. Yes.
It provides a whole different view of your customer base, and it shows the humanity, because how often do we look at customers as an org over here, an org
Uh-huh.
over here, and instead what we always focus on is this is John at this org and this is Sarah at this org, right? Like you focus on the individual people instead. And when
Hmm.
you can say these people came together and collectively donated $20,000 worth of gifts, that's not stuff that's going to get recycled or thrown away in the future. It didn't incur a whole bunch of shipping costs, which
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
other impacts. I mean, it's just dollars to causes that make a difference. Like, it's incredible.
I'm glad and I'm happy that the people listening this podcast today who are wondering, okay, that sounds great. How do I do that? How do I incorporate it? It's fairly easy to do. I think all you need to do is just have the heart to start.
Yeah.
And keeping it authentic, keeping it real, putting it out there, being very clear, don't treat it as a campaign. I
Yep.
think if you put people out there and let them know that we're rallying around something very purposeful, yeah, I think half your battles are won.
Yeah. It, it's always just amazing how I've had so many conversations where people are like, "I always want to do something, but I
Yeah.
don't know where to start." It's almost like they're overwhelmed with the amount of ways they can help that there's this like paralysis. Like,
Hmm.
just give me an avenue that I can trust and believe in. And once you present that to people, they're just so grateful because it is a way, whether it's a small donation or a large donation, it doesn't matter. Like everything can make a difference. I talk about
Yeah.
with building for Bridget, we can feed one child 2 meals a day every school day for a month for $5. It's like
Wow.
$5.60, but I'm going to say $5 because that's easier.
Uh-huh.
$5 for 1 month, 2 meals a day for a child. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the impact that people can make, and I think they forget. They forget that if it's not a $100 donation, that it can make an
Uh-huh.
impact, and it can. Small things can help, and you just need to provide that opportunity. And you made me think of another thing too, because there's more than just, and you're probably gonna get to this, so sorry if I'm jumping the gun, but there's more than just the dollars in and dollars out. You can
Yeah.
think of activities with your community too. So if we think of broadening, you know where I'm
You're
going?
right. Yes. So this was my next question because it starts with all everything hunky dory. I understand everyone's very enthused about it, but how do you sustain that momentum? And you're bang on. Like it's all in flow. It's so wonderful talking to you.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah.
I mean, it's creativity, and you think of holistically of what should every community program include? It should
Hmm.
include getting your members together as humans, not just to talk about your product. It's building relationships.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Hopefully everybody's having virtual meetups. You've heard me talk about it a million times. I'm a huge advocate. Please have virtual meetups with your customers. One
Correct.
easy way that you can have a really meaningful and something different, and it becomes a gift to your advocates or your community members, is by doing something virtually that helps a charity, helps a nonprofit. And we've
Yeah.
done this a few different ways. One of them, we did a virtual tour of an animal sanctuary in California. And
Oh,
we let them
wow.
know ahead of time, bring your kids. My kid loved watching it. And we're all sitting on our Zoom screen, and there's somebody
Uh-huh.
walking around this incredible sanctuary telling the story of how this cow and this horse got to be best friends. So they're learning about animals. It's helping the cause because I donated to them for them to do this
Uh-huh.
tour, right? So you can do things like that with your community. Some of them are completely free, some of them are a very small donation. We've also done virtual mapping. Virtual mapping is a completely free thing where you go in, everybody sits
Mhm.
at their computer, and you actually map out, you draw out maps for locations that don't have maps. So if you're talking about
Okay.
like a place like rural Uganda, where if there is a mudslide, there is no way to know where people are. They don't know where the
Mhm.
roads are. They don't know where key buildings are because there aren't maps. So there are organizations that will have you help them go in and virtually map. It's really fun. You can get as many people as you want in a room to do
Wonderful.
this. And then
I
you're
never knew about it. So this is something that I would go back and, now research because I think, this whole gamification part of it and stuff like that. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it um, a little ahead. But yes, I
Mhm.
do feel that, when you said that it doesn't constantly have to feel that it's like a brand initiative, it's
Right.
more on the community's movement. I enjoy
Mhm.
listening to what the ideas you have, and there's so much to gain from other than the charity part. Also, there's so
Yes.
much to gain from because you're not treating your community as a commodity.
Right. Exactly.
I love that concept.
Exactly. You give people a chance to get together and get to know each other as humans. It's so important because we've had customers say time and time
Hmm.
again, and I'm just coming off of a user conference, so I'm extra excited because I got to see a lot of them in person. But they're like, "Jenny, I can't find this at your
Yeah.
competitor. I can't go to your competitor and find a community where I am this supported. It doesn't
Yeah.
exist." And there's magic in that that any C-suite can understand. When you say, "I can't find this piece at a competitor," you better believe they're gonna wanna support
Yes.
that piece because it's
Yes.
keeping their customers around.
I love it. But tell
Yeah.
me something. Now, we've discussed on how to keep the momentum and everything. But let's assume someone here hasn't done it ever.
Mhm. Yep.
So, for teams that are ready to take that first plunge into, adding that CSR and charity organizations to their program,
Mhm.
where should they start? Like, is it a budget they should look at for leadership buy in, or finding a partner organization to align with the company values? Or is it something that can be different charities and different initiatives? How do you go about it?
Yeah, that's one of those answers that has a big depends as the answer, unfortunately. But I mean, really, it is bring the idea to your management. Go to your next level manager and say, I think this would be a huge addition to our community.
Yeah.
And again, people have a hard time arguing with charity. It just naturally
Correct.
would
Yeah.
kind of look like a jerk when you
You
argue
have a
with
you have
charity.
a very valid point. Yeah.
There's that. They will need to contact their legal team. Like, that's
Hmm.
sorry, it's an unnecessary evil. Our legal team is delightful. So, they're setting that aside. But people just, legal conversation, there may be certain laws or regulations that they just need to keep in mind. That's usually a pretty light and easy conversation.
Uh-huh.
We started, for instance, where we had a number of charities that we just either picked or, like I said, our customers voted on. And then they said, oh, we're going to do American Heart Association. Or I know you're going to get to a question later, but making sure that it's representative of your entire community base is important too. You never just want something that's geocentric, like, oh, we're only giving all of our dollars to this area or this particular cause.
You're
That in mind.
answering my next question now.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you have a point, and we are well connected. That clearly shows the fact that, it's you clearly mentioned that it doesn't always need a big budget. It's something,
Right.
I think it's more of a brave leadership and, a clear why.
Yes.
on why you want to add this particular initiative. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm gonna now put in my question so that you can continue your answer. But yeah, uh, I think it gets tricky a lot of times where, you're pulling in these initiatives, you're wanting to add these charities, but how do you connect the continents, right? How do you connect that in emotion and make that cause feel local rather than someone sitting there across, 10,
Exactly.
10 different countries?
And anybody's gonna think about this because even if it is something as good as you're donating to charity, people feel ownership over their area of like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
here in the United States, somebody else is in Australia, is what they're gonna do impact. So it's always being mindful, I think, of that. It doesn't mean that you have to find an organization that serves the globe every time,
Uh-huh.
but it's
Uh-huh.
being mindful of who your customers are, who your company is. Your company a global company or are they centered in one part of the world? That makes sense that your charities would be there. There's also just the humanity aspect of people will get it. Like when there are massive wildfires in Australia, when was that? 2, 3 years ago
Yes.
now?
Yeah.
Recent history, massive wildfires in Australia. Nobody's gonna argue saying, "Oh,
We
we shouldn't."
shouldn't. Yeah. There were
But we
floods
did.
floods here in Punjab, and irrespective of me being from Punjab, me being a North Indian, I had a couple of friends who were abroad who were asking me because I'd put it on my Instagram and things like that. So it
Mhm.
didn't really mean that, oh, because you're an Indian you are helping, otherwise you won't. It's more
Yeah.
universal. Yeah, you're right.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, sometimes there are if the topic again going back to like working with customers, always ask customers, get their input. If they say that supporting low income kids is what they want to support,
Yeah. Yeah.
there are charities all over the globe that support. So maybe there
Absolutely.
isn't
Yeah.
one, but you can find where your customer is centered and you can find places in those geographies. So it's really just being mindful. There's no one right way to do it, of course,
Correct.
but if you're cognizant of who your customer base is, who your organization wants to help, their objectives, like all of that, just be mindful and then you'll make the right decisions.
Perfect. It's in a way you're connecting your customers to charities and connecting their hearts and connecting their emotion. So it's all intertwined, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The other thing I was gonna say too, just because you might get this, but because you commented on cost, a lot
Uh-huh.
of times donating to a charity is going to save your organization money, not just because of like they're making a donation, tax, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not paying for the actual thing and for shipping. And I have shipped to India recently. I love y'all. It's expensive to get a sweatshirt to India. You can make the
Correct.
same amount of donation that will go so much further than shipping that sweatshirt. You can, the dollars, when you think dollar for dollar, like you can make a
Yeah.
huge impact if you're not actually shipping a thing somewhere. So that can be a huge point that you make to leadership that they can wrap their heads around. Oh, we're actually going to save a lot of money while doing something
Correct.
really good.
Yeah. No, that completely resonates with me as well. And I know we spoke about the gamification part a little, but I want you to
Wow.
elaborate more, and I'm sure it would get my creative juices running as well. So I want to know, you've spoken about creativity at play, the virtual part of it, and what are some of the ways that gamify generosity into your program? Like
Yeah.
tuning engagement into contribution and without losing sincerity, to be very honest, like,
Yeah.
where it's fun.
Yeah. This is where, again, like, creativity comes into play. I've always said you should hire creative people to work on community. If they don't have
Oh,
creativity, they're
totally.
probably not in the right spot because it really does. It takes a creative mind to come up with a lot of things that people
Correct.
can really connect to because you're not serving one persona. You're serving like, woo, a big variety of people that all want to be engaged and interested. So we've done it a few different ways. We've done it the kind of easiest and basic level of way of you earn, but everybody has some sort of a points-based system. We had a point-based system with our advocacy program previously. We don't anymore. Now we have a much kind of leaner points-based
Uh-huh.
system for our entire community where again, they can earn stuff like a sweatshirt if they want to. but they can also make a charitable donation. And where we had picked out different charities in the past for our advocacy program, now our company, we have a foundation at Jamf, which does absolutely incredible work. And they align with four main causes, at least for this year. They've picked out four main causes they align with. So the charity, any donations that are made, instead of accepting a reward
Uh-huh.
through that program, are split between those charities. So again, that kind of goes back
Wow.
to what we previously talked about. The organization already has this foundational arm. They've identified these
Hmm.
charities they want to support. They're over a diversified group of nonprofits, so anybody can feel good about, I won't get the sweatshirt, take my money and send it to these places, split four ways.
Yeah.
So that's one easy way to do it. Another thing that is actually not, it was not my brainchild, not under my realm at all, but I'm very proud of it that our company did. I already said, had our user conference recently. Our marketing team came up with this great idea that instead of getting your swag bag, which are really cool, so it's hard for people to say no to them, but instead of coming to the checking counter and getting your swag bag, you can say, "I defer that bag and would like you to donate the cost of it to charity instead,"
Oh,
which
that's nice.
I thought was amazing, and they haven't released the final numbers, but I heard early numbers were multi-thousands of dollars, which they were
Wow.
then sending to our user conference was in Denver, so a way to make
Mm-hmm.
it local is that money is going to feed students in Denver.
Oh,
Just
wonderful.
incredible. So, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah. Yeah.
what amazing easy way to provide value for customers where they can just say, "Nope, you keep whatever is in the
Yeah.
bag
It's like
stuff," and
instant generosity with
exactly.
joy, ample joy. Yeah.
Yes. So I loved that. They've done that. I think this was the second year in a row, but again, that's something anybody can do is just ahead of time, you give your customers the option not to claim the thing that you were gonna give them, but say, "Go ahead and make a donation on my behalf instead," is really, really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I
Um,
I like this idea, I'm going to share it with my team as well because
yeah,
I think, how do I say it? It's that kind of energy that, reminds me of doing good that doesn't have to feel heavy. It's
yes.
just so much
Yeah.
fun that your customers would enjoy doing it, and it's
Mhm.
very hopeful for a better tomorrow.
Yes,
I
yes.
just put it
And
simply.
feedback, like, going off of that, yeah, hope for a better tomorrow, we all need, but customers, they continuously said this year, last year, we did the same thing, but we also have, we do volunteering at the conference themselves, little things
Uh-huh.
they can pack, this year they can pack kits for the local low-income schools, and then last year we wrote letters for adults living in isolation so people could come and write a
Oh,
little card, and then we sent those out to seniors living in isolation right at the user conference. And the feedback that we get from customers is it's great to see humanity in the company,
yeah. Yeah.
right? Like, how can you show that there's humanity? You're not just a big bad engine that's looking just to churn out profits constantly. Like, you care about the people. And those
Yeah.
are some easy ways that you can make that apparent.
I love that. Very beautifully put. And yeah, we're left with two questions. Uh, and this podcast has been so entertaining. I've not realized that we've been talking and yapping for last 35 minutes right now. And we've been so quick with our entire response and it's all in flow. But I when you were talking about this, I do want to put across that purpose driven community, right? That you build, and you've changed the way a lot of people look at loyalty. I would want to know, not just in your customers, but in your own team and life, how have
Mm.
you built and brought together that purpose driven community that you talk about?
Oh my goodness. That's a big that's a big one. Yeah, I think everything that I do, it kinda goes back to me. I think about, like, how my kids keep me so busy. It goes back to how you use your time and how you make your
Mhm.
choices, and they're so intentional. When you have less of something, you have whatever it is, whether it's time, money, whatever, you have to be more intentional about what you have, right? So I
Yeah.
think that as I've gotten older and hopefully a little bit wiser, I'm just more intentional with my choices. So that's one thing that I think about a lot is if I'm going to share something on LinkedIn, it needs to be
Hmm.
thoughtful and hopefully it's shared for a reason. Like there's this bit I don't believe in talking just to talk. Like hopefully you're
Yeah.
saying something because it can impact some other person in a way. And that's just kind of generally how I tend to live my life too is my husband says I overshare, which he's fully accurate, but I do that because that I think gets to the heart of what you're saying is, like, that's how I build community, is
Yeah.
people want to engage with somebody else who they can connect with on some level, whether
Correct.
it's through a shared interest, where you were brought up, whatever it is, how you do your hair, I don't whatever it is, like, that's how people make connections, and that's how they ultimately build community, so I just kind of think of that somewhat naturally and intentionally throughout all aspects of my life, which I have no idea if that answers your question, but that's what popped in my head.
It does. It does. It definitely does. Also, I know I had shared the questions earlier and I tweaked them a little and what have you. But the last one is, and I think this has now become my patent one. So I asked, what's the best career advice you've
Mm,
received? And
that's
what's the
good.
worst one? I'm very curious to know the worst one. But yes.
I'm trying to think the best career advice. You're not gonna love this because it's not one piece of advice, I think.
Uh-huh.
I think
No, I would.
it's more so I think about the career role models who I've had. Not
Hmm. Hmm.
necessarily any one thing that they've done, but more so how they acted, how they portrayed themselves, and I can think of 2 people in particular. One was a previous CEO and one was a hospital president where I worked, and they both lived their lives with integrity, purpose, and very realistic humanity. They didn't put on a show. They were who they were to the core. They stood up for what they believed in, and
Yeah.
they did that in their personal life, and they did that in their professional life, and they brought their humanity into everything they did. They brought empathy. They brought, just this caring nature in
Hmm.
everything they
Hmm.
did. So, it's not necessarily one piece of advice other than I think about what would that person have done, and they probably know who this
Correct.
is if they were listening. What would that person do? And that's the advice I give myself as I think about those leaders who lived and led so brilliantly that anybody would follow because of how they did it, and I try to incorporate that.
I truly love this. And, I'm going to give you a reverse thing of it. In the morning, I was looking for, quotes and frames that I could put on my podcast wall. And I
Mhm.
found something absolutely opposite that so many people I've met in my life who have inspired me to be nothing like them.
Yes! Oh my gosh.
Totally reverse.
I can
But
understand. Yeah.
yeah, because there are so many people you tend to meet, there are very few, just a handful who, even right now, if you're talking about those best advisors or you're thinking that, okay, what would that person do if I was in their boots or something on those lines?
Yeah.
I would say those people must have been really special that you
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
value and hold them to
Mm.
this regard. So,
Right. Yeah, and I guess now that you say that, one of the pieces of advice that they did give that is a tangible thing people can take away
uh-huh.
would be to find a really strong mentor outside your organization. That is something that was because one of those people has become a very, very strong mentor to me that we have stayed connected, and I know that I can connect with them anytime.
Hmm.
That is something that I wish everybody would have because you need a go-to. And outside your organization, I think is key because they have a
Yeah.
cleaner
Yeah.
lens, right? Like they don't have all the muck that might be around. They might not,
Correct.
they don't need that all. They just have this perception of they know you and they know how to then guide you through it
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
because of their lived experiences. So I would say that's one tangible thing is just like get a really strong mentor outside your org.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Uh,
What's the worst advice, career advice?
we've all had bad career advice, and some of it you don't realize is bad until you're older
Correct. Yeah.
too, right? Like you
I
just
think most of the times I have realized that something was really bad
Mhm.
or even toxic
Yeah.
is when I've evolved as a person and I go back to that thought and wonder, oh my God, what was that
Yeah.
person saying and how did I even listen to it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think, oh man, I could go a couple different ways with this. One thing that is very specific and tangible is something I was told in community specifically was to take myself out. So don't use my name, don't use my likeness, like anonymize the community experience for the
Robotic.
customer base, which anybody in community, yeah, you're like, that's insane. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I think the reason that they shared that was because if customers get to know a really strong community team, that team is not there. It's then a liability to the company,
Correct.
right? Like,
Yeah.
which then one would just say, well, you company do what you can to keep your really good people. I mean, that's
Hmm. Hmm.
what you would think is normal. But that was a piece of advice that I was given. And it wasn't even advice, it was a direct order. And I disagreed and then was able to shift that later on. But don't ever do that.
Correct.
Like we already talked about, people connect with people. They don't connect with companies. They're not going
You're
to connect
right.
with
You're
your
right.
brand. They're not going to connect with your marketing materials. They're going to connect with people at your organization. So you need to bring yourself into it. So that was a terrible piece of advice. The other kind of bigger thing that I'll share is we've all seen the people who change who they are to get ahead.
Oh,
We've
yes.
all seen it.
Yes. 100%.
One thing that you can never let somebody take from you is your integrity.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's what I personally lived by. That's what I share with people. Like, yeah, maybe if I stay true to myself, I'm not going to get XYZ title in life, but I have my
Correct.
integrity and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So that would be another thing that I'd just say a bad piece of advice is to do whatever you can to succeed. At the end of the day, once you climb that ladder and you look back and you have to identify that you had to change yourself to get there, you're probably not going
Yeah.
to be happy about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, I
Oh,
love this. It's such a beautiful, I would say, full circle moment because we're coming to an end, but I think it's ending at a very, very inspiring note. And I hope when this podcast comes out this Thanksgiving, and as we're sipping our tea and counting our blessings, maybe
mhm.
loyalty isn't about transactions at all. We can take that back and just think about it as transformation. And I hope that whosoever is listening, even if 1% of them introduce this beautiful act of charity, community building, and just bonding with heart, I think my job would be done and I would be happy.
I love that. Bonding with heart. Put it on a bumper sticker or a computer sticker or a t-shirt like that. Thank you for bringing this topic up and shining a light on it because it is something that can easily be overlooked. But when
Yes,
you
yeah.
don't overlook it, the difference it can make is monumental. So thank you for the time and for giving it attention. I am super grateful and I'm sure everybody else who's listening is too.
Oh, wonderful. So I did write a thank you note. And before you thanked me, I wanted to thank you. We'll keep doing this. But thank you truly for showing that community can be a force for good. Because, and I've written this line when I shared my synopsis with you also, and you made a heart on it because I said, sometimes the most loyal thing you can build is just a better world. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
My gosh. No, thank you. Appreciate it.
If you found today's tea piping hot, don't forget to stir the pot. Share it, rate it, and bring a friend to the table. Until next time, keep turning loyalty into leverage with me, Aparna, and the Loyalty Talks podcast.